Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of the new survival horror film Until Dawn, which is based on the video game of the same name. This film is directed by David F. Sandberg, who gave us Annabelle Creation, or one of the Annabelles, if not all of them, and also he directed the two Shazam movies over at DC. He returns to his horror roots here in this new film, and the plot picks up as such. A year after her sister Melanie mysteriously disappeared, Clover and her friends head into a remote valley where she vanished in search for answers. They arrive at this hotel where they are horribly murdered over and over again, only to wake up after each murder, starting over from the beginning. This is an interesting premise for a film, especially for a horror film. You know, you're adding, or I should say, you're mixing Groundhog's Day with Happy Death Day with Cabin in the Woods, and you blended them all together in hopes to get a good movie as Until Dawn. Unfortunately, it's not good. I was looking forward to this. It looked like a really good horror film, a nice take on the genre here. A haunted house type of film, uh, with some cool deaths and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, that seems interesting. Putting the Groundhog's Day element into it. I never played the game, so I don't know all the ins and outs of the rules and the world that's been set up and whatnot. This story is in the same universe as the game. That's what they describe it as, but it's kind of a original standalone story within that universe. So I'm like, okay. And then you have Peter Stormare, who is in the game, is in the movie. So that's a nice touch. And the touch of you die and you start over from the beginning. I thought that was a nice touch too, because of the video game aspect of it all. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Let's see what we got here. And you know, the first half of this movie, it's, it's like the tale of two halves. The first half of this movie had me hooked, had me interested. The pacing was great. We got to the plot of the movie, the meat of the meal, pretty early on. So you're like, the first half, I'm like, all right, we got some interesting kills. The story has been pretty much laid out. And I'm like, okay, we're in for a good show at all. And then the second half of the movie started, and I got instantly bored. I mean, it's not. It's very rare that, not that I get bored in films, because I've went and sat in movies and got bored, but it worked its way up. Those films earned my uninterested attention. My lack of attention, it earned it. This is the first film that I can think of where it was like an instant checkout. It just hit a wall, and that takes skill, because it was like it was done on purpose. Like, we're just gonna stop all momentum of excitement, of horror, of good storytelling. We're just gonna stop it here, and then just play out the rest of the remaining 35 minutes of this movie, or 45 minutes of this movie. I mean, it was so bad. The last half of this movie was so bad. It makes you wonder, did they even finish the screenplay for this movie? Did they just write act one and half of act two and say, that's enough? We'll film this, and when we on a set, we'll just figure it out day by day. It just blew my mind how boring the second half of this movie was. Granted, it wasn't like it was hitting a home run in the first half, but it was entertaining. Your characters were bland. Nobody here I liked. I did not like not one character. Nobody I wanted to get behind. I mean, these were generic teen horror characters, copy and paste from every 90s, early 2000s horror film that had teenagers in them. And these are the characters. Nothing interesting, no backstory, no development, no character arcs. It was none of that with these characters. They were just, here's your lines, recite your lines. And I don't even blame the actors here. I don't blame none of them because I've seen a couple of them in other projects and I deeply enjoyed them. But here is like, okay, we're going through the motions. There was no energy whatsoever from nobody. And it's like they knew, it's like they knew that this movie was a dumpster fire and it did not deliver at all. You had a villain in this movie that I still don't understand what was this purpose? What was his goal? What was the point of all this? And how was this being accomplished as far as the reincarnation is concerned? I don't understand all that. So none of that made sense. Maybe if I played the game, maybe fans of the game get it and respond to it and accept it. And if that's the case, I'm happy for all of you. I'm happy for the fans of the game that can follow this story. But for the layman like me, it's no way you can enjoy this movie. There's nothing about this movie that I would sit back and say, oh man, I wanna go home and play the game now. I'm gonna go to GameStop and buy the game so I can go home and play it. That did not. All really what it did was like, well, I would never play this game. I would never play the game if it's anything like this movie. Completely bored, and I enjoy survival horror games. I like games like that, The Last of Us, and so on and so forth. And speaking of which, I'm thinking about The Last of Us, the TV show, right? How it's based off the game. And I know this isn't a fair comparison because that is A plus filmmaking or storytelling over there at HBO with The Last of Us. But man, we living in an era where we have some really good video game adaptations. Last of Us, I mean, judging by the box office, Minecraft, another video game that I didn't play, but the movie was all right. I accepted it for what it was, but a lot of Minecraft players enjoyed the movie, so I can only assume it was a good adaptation. Super Mario Brothers movie and so on and so forth. We're getting some good ones, because we are coming from an era where every video game movie was bad, and so it felt good that they had kind of turned the corner, and this movie made a U-turn and went back around that corner. It is so bad. I mean, my goodness, they couldn't even do the simple task of scaring you in a horror movie. There was nothing frightening, nothing frightened me, and I'm a horror movie nut. And so and I'm an easy mark. You can easily frighten me, but this movie did not. It did nothing for my horror Jones. I wanted that itch scratched, and it did not cut the mustard. Until Dawn gets a letter grade of a D minus. Yeah, it I mean, it would have got an F, but the first half of the movie was really looking good. And then bloop, the bottom fell out. The bottom fell completely out. Oh man, disappointing. Very disappointing. I was actually looking forward to this. Yeah, very disappointing. I should have known I should have known something when the studio didn't have any screenings. The review embargo didn't lift until the date of the release of the movie. That is very telling. And yeah, this was a bad, bad movie. I would like to know, are you a fan of Until Dawn, the video game, and what did you think of the movie? Did you think that it was a good adaptation of the game, or did you think they took liberties and went completely off the rails with it? I would love to know, because I wanted to like this movie going in, and so I want to know that, because maybe I need to look at it from a different light. It's a strong possibility, but tell me your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for me on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube, and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Until Dawn. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.